Is there any British technology you
We're an agency work
Just say my name. You,
Did you say conference is happening in November?
okay, so let's go again.
similar sort of like
Everyone, my name is Kyle Detinoye. I'm the country director for Genesis Energy. Cell company. Saying you.
11 energy.
You know who the boss is?
and it's slightly different.
Yeah. Is it number 11 or spelled out?
Imagine I didn't even.
Didn't have for the interview. Have you done?
Welcome. Very well.
She's awesome.
So,
December, that's all. That's all. Looking forward to seeing you in December.
No, and I like if you can measure something. Lipstick.
No, don't worry.
Management. Measuring.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, we did start.
Good evening, ladies and
Offered to me
gentlemen.
as an investment a year ago. I would have invested.
Hello everyone.
Partner with them.
Welcome to Westfield University.
Thank you very much.
Has everybody gone?
I'm a big fan of Crowdcube. Have you come across them?
Are we starting?
Starting now?
They're saying they have to finish by 7 in any case. So,
Have you guys had any interviews?
no interview. I'm supporter. Come on, I'm not so smart. He's a professor.
You're a professor?
A dedicated photographer. And then
Renewable energy.
And so, and specializing in developing countries,
I work essentially in solar for
engineering solar. I'm particularly interested in bringing the skills base from developing countries into the UK. That's my particular focus.
How do you feel like about the other issues on that? Say that it'll be no way.
But the way I feel is that skills
Oh, I attended last year.
only just started developing those skills. We need them now.
Maybe because it's
Quantity that is available.
maybe the conference will be tomorrow.
And I don't feel like we're taking it away from developing countries because they've already got lots. So I think it would actually be providing great opportunities for both.
It's a good way to leverage the
I have your card still. Don't worry, I know.
And there would be a
But you know,
word for it. Knowledge transfer. Going the other way. Normally it goes that way. Now let's bring it this way. Indonesia, that's one of my main experiences. South Africa, in
science will
Pay me. Clear up your mess.
together
Kerala and Maharashtra.
one full of nature and the other.
with everything.
That's right. Well, Maharashtra has plenty
everybody.
of non-urban.
I would love you to take your seats, please.
And,
And if people are outside, if you can hear me, just please come right in. We are about to start.
Oh, yeah. Oh, are we still now? Okay. Might get off my aisle.
Do we have some more people outside? Probably not. Okay, welcome everyone. Good evening. That's a better response. Thank you. My name is EJ Daniel Ibogidi, and I'll be your host for this lovely time we're going to spend together this evening. And it's great to see that everyone is sort of like relaxed now. You have something to drink, you've networked with each other, so you all know each other's names. I know sometimes there's some people here who are like, I'm not good with names, but atmospheres like this give you an opportunity to at least just get to know somebody, take a contact, get their email, just link up somehow, and then we continue from here. But hey, it's great to have everyone sitting in here in this, not sure where to put the weather today. But it's okay, right? Not so hot. It was really hot, but now it's a little bit cool. So anyway, welcome all of you. Welcome everybody once again to the GISEL conference, right? And of course, that's the Global Sustainable Energy and Leadership Conference. I want to believe that everybody who's here knows something about sustainability, knows a bit about energy. And even if you don't, here is an opportunity, a great opportunity for you to be aware and to have more knowledge about what it's all about. Moving forward, what we need to do, how we need to go about it, and the role we all play individually and collectively in this process. I will go right straight into it, and I will be introducing. She introduced herself to me, but I'll introduce her again. Maybe you all know her here, and I will be introducing Lindsay Cole, who is a Director of Business Engagement and Graduate Futures, University of Westminster. Emilia, she spoke to me. I said, yep, okay, I'm going to be asking her a lot of questions after this. And Lindsay is a Director of Business Engagement and Graduate Futures at the University of Westminster, where she leads strategic partnerships between academia, industry, and employers. With over 15 years experience across higher education, government, and enterprise, I beg your pardon, I was going to say expertise. Enterprise, she has held leadership roles at London South Bank University and the University of East London. She spearheaded the development of Zone 29, Westminster's employability and expertise, an enterprise hub, and has driven award-winning initiatives supporting students, entrepreneurship, graduate employability, and community expertise partnerships across the university. Please put your hands together for Lindsay while she gives the opening and welcome them all.
Thank you very much for the kind words. And welcome everybody to the University of Westminster. My name's Lindsay. I'm not going to tell you my job title because you can see that on the screen and you've heard that already. What I just want to do is just to cover a couple of things. First of all, I'm going to do housekeeping and just run through some things about this evening's event and welcome you to the building. And then I just want to share a little bit about the university and why sustainability is so important to us at the University of Westminster. So first of all, just to start in terms of the building this evening, we're not expecting any fire alarms. So if the fire alarm does go off, please go out here and then straight across and straight down the fire exit to the bottom, out onto the street and disperse. And when it's safe to come back, we will let you know. If you need Wi-Fi, there's a Wi-Fi network called Public Wi-Fi that you can just click and connect to join, so please do that. If you need any of the bathrooms this evening, they're out on the main staircase and there's actually toilets on every floor. So if the first two on this floor are busy, head downstairs and use a couple of the others. It's what people tell me, so I always mention it. And then the last couple of points are that if you need anything at all this evening, Christina, my wonderful colleague, has been working with GISEL and Joy to really organise this evening. So Christina is here and will be here for the full duration of the evening. So please do let Christina know if you need anything. Have I missed anything, Christina? No, good. I was just checking. We said earlier I knew I'd say the rest and forget about the health and safety things, so I'm glad I remembered those. Have any of you been to the University of Westminster before? Yeah. Did you study here, or have you just been for other events and things? Events. So what about yourself? Oh, you're a student. Brilliant. What do you study?
Policy analysis.
Brilliant. So welcome. It's lovely to have you here. So as a university, we are a university of about 18,000 students. We're a former polytechnic. We're really proud of our polytechnic roots that are firmly rooted in helping young people gain an education to really work with industry and gain the skills industry needs. We have campuses in central London, I think how I'm going to describe it. So The building next door is where our business school is and where we have our School of Architecture and Cities. We've got a number of sites between here and Oxford Circus in Fitzrovia, where we teach subjects like life sciences and some of the humanities. And then if any of you live northwest of here, we've got a campus in Harrow, in the glorious green bit of North London, where we have a big arts school and lots of our students live up there as well. So we're very much rooted in the centre of London, and many of our students come from within London too. For us as a university, sustainability is a key part of our university strategy. So all universities report every year on their achievements with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. That's something that's incredibly important to us at Westminster. But one thing we're really proud of is we had the first climate assembly at the university last year of any UK university. So colleagues, students, and the community came together and really formed commitments and pledges around climate and the future. And Christina was one of our colleagues who was part of that too. So we're really pleased to be hosting you this evening and to be part of the conversation on this. The building in which you're in is Zone 29, which only opened in April. So you're in a building which is relatively new and we're just starting to use. But the purpose of this building is to really bring business into the university, to connect with our students, and it's great to have one of our students here, to help our students develop the skills and networks they need to get jobs in the future. So we want to host lots of events to bring employers in, to talk to them more, to learn about your skills needs, to make sure that our courses then reflect industry needs too. We also have co-working space in here for our students who are running their own businesses, and then students can also come here if they want to take part in careers events as well in the future. This is a refurbishment project. I just want to say that thinking about sustainability, we refurbished this building over the last 5 years. We could have knocked it down and built it up again, which probably would have been a lot easier, but that would not have been sustainable. So we made that decision that we've refurbished the building and brought it back to life. You can see some of that in this room. The original brick is below the windows. If you look up, we've got the original roof. Someone asked me if it was finished. Definitely is finished. So as you look around, you'll see that where we've really tried to keep that retrofit part of the building and really live our values, I guess, that if we're committed to sustainability, it's important that we do that in terms of how we treat our estate too. I don't really have anything else to say other than to say, welcome to Westminster, enjoy your evening. I hope you have some wonderful discussion. I'm going to be able to stay for some of the evening and I'm looking forward to the contributions. And I hope today is the start of a conversation between many of you and the university as well as we go forward. So thank you, and thank you for coming to Westminster, Joy.
Thank you. Thank you. Another round of applause for her, please. Okay, so we are moving on. Now we are familiar with the environment where we are and what's happening in the building. I will be introducing someone to come in here and just give a little company spotlight. None other than Kayode Tinwoye. Please, I pride myself that I pronounce names very well. But I don't know if I did well with this one. I'm not sure if I did well with this one. Kayode Tinwoye, who is going to be talking on Genesis Energy. And I'll just read a little profile about this gentleman who's coming up here. Kayode, who is a country director in Nigeria at Genesis Energy UK, with over a decade structuring bankable clean energy investment across Africa. He leads an organization and capital raising, for over 450 MW in development and operations, bridging global clean energy financing with local and capital markets. He presents the company spotlight session. Please put your hands together for Kayode. Kayode, please, when you come in.
So I'll probably score you 70%.
I'm very competitive, so you have to make me higher.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Kayode Tinwoye. I'm the country director for Genesis Energy UK. We have our headquarters in UK, in London here. We're majorly a Pan-African energy infrastructure developer, asset manager, investor. We build, own, operate, and manage power infrastructure, majorly in Nigeria and a few other African countries. So we've been around the energy space for over 2 decades, developing renewable energy infrastructure from solar to hydro to wind to battery energy storage systems across the continent. And we are also very strong with gas-fired plants, providing energy that is, first of all, sustainable, affordable, and reliable for the vast number of unserved market in Africa. We believe in gas for good. We also believe in renewables. Our renewable and gas portfolio today stands in excess of 450 megawatts of power, both in construction, in operations, and in advanced development across about 8 countries in Africa, Nigeria being a principal, one of our major markets where we've served over the last 20 years. So I'm just here to spotlight Genesis. Genesis has partnered with GCell over the years to sort of contribute a quota to first attending some of this event, contributing to the discourse, ensuring that we provide our perspectives on how we can make our environment more sustainable, and we make energy transition not just something we talk about, but something that we actually put into practice and becomes a reality for the Nigerian market as well as the broader African space. I don't like to talk too much, so I would just like to show you a bit of what we have done in Genesis. Gas, yeah, I think I can speak as this video. So if you look on the screen, you see one of the, I would actually say this is the largest off-grid power solution, gas to power captive solution in Nigeria today. It's an 84 megawatt off-grid gas to power plant in Port Harcourt, Nigeria. So this plant serves one of the biggest refineries in Nigeria, which is the Port Harcourt refinery. It's a dedicated plant serving that facility in Nigeria. It's been operating for over 10 years, providing uninterrupted power for the Port Harcourt refinery. It has displaced a lot of fossil fuel in the environment, and it's continued to expand access even beyond the Port Harcourt region, and we're transporting that power even across to other parts of Nigeria. The nameplate capacity is actually about 120 megawatt. So there's a lot of power that we still need to harness from that facility and move across Nigeria. So it's something that we're very proud of as gas. I mean, we were having a conversation just earlier on that, you know, renewables are good, much talked about, but for Africa, we need the gas to industrialize, because it's when you have the gas that you can be sure of the base load that industries need to run 24 hours. Renewables are only available for a fraction of the time every day. Like the sun will not shine 24 hours, for instance. So you need to store that energy, which is very expensive for a lot of African countries, especially the middle class or the lower middle class to afford. But gas is everywhere, especially in West Africa and some parts of Southern Africa. So if we harness that gas, we industrialize the continent, and then we use the renewables to make it sustainable over time. So that's what we believe in, gas for good. And that's just one of our gas portfolios. This is the first LNG to power in Africa, which we developed in Kano State in Nigeria. You'll see that the first micro LNG to power that we developed at Genesis Energy. So it's one of the first also, in addition to the first LPG to power that we developed in Mali, in West Africa, in the West African sub-region. So that's that. If you can go very quickly to the next. So this is the renewable one of our renewable projects. It's a 1.5 megawatt project. Earlier in 2024, we signed an MOU with the Katsina State government in Nigeria to deploy up to $500 million worth of renewable energy projects, making Katsina State the energy hub for renewable energy in Nigeria, for northern Nigeria. So what we did here is interesting because we've taken the government house in Katsina and the general hospital in Katsina completely off-grid. So now they're run on solar and battery 24 hours, both the government house and the general hospital. And for me, we were beyond saving the government a lot of money in diesel because they used to run the generators 24 hours in some cases. We're saving them close to about 4 billion naira. If you convert that to USD, we're talking somewhere around $10, $15 million savings in energy cost on a yearly basis, which is significant. But for me, even beyond that, the hospitals were not operating optimally. So we had a lot of maternal mortality. The theaters were not working optimally, the labor rooms and all of those things. So now that we have that facility running 24 hours on renewables, we were able to cut down drastically on those maternal deaths that we used to see in those hospitals. So for me, beyond the numbers, that's one great impact that we're very proud of, that we're able to deploy and achieve for that hospital in Katsina State. I don't know how much more time I have, but that's a brief review of our portfolio, what we have done. And we have Banana Island project. This is the distribution project. Banana Island, for those of us that are familiar with Lagos, is probably the highest high-class residential estate in Nigeria today. So we have managed the distribution of power in that residential estate for the last 15 years. We've moved that capacity to 20 megawatts recently, and we're also deploying that power to serve other estates within Lagos State. It's the biggest local grid in Nigeria today, the Banana Island that we power. So from gas to renewables to even distributing the power, we are quite active in the space. In South Africa, we're developing 100 megawatt solar. In Zambia, we're developing a 71 megawatt wind and solar energy. And other parts of Southern Africa, we're building our portfolios aggressively. So we're happy to be part of this GCL. We understand the dream. We appreciate what Joy and our team are doing, and we constantly will support GCL to ensure that this message is passed across and we make energy much more sustainable in Africa. Thank you very much.
Another round of applause for Ms. Kayode. So we're going to be going into the panel discussion. Right, I was just going to say I will introduce our panelists. And to be moderating this session is titled Building Future-Ready Energy Systems. I will be calling on Helen Neal, who is the founder of HN Communications. Helen is the founder of HN Communications with over 25 years advising governments and global brands, including Virgin and Nissan, on reputation and credibility. For the past 8 years, she has led award-winning climate communications campaigns for major NGOs and businesses. She moderates the panel on building future-ready energy systems, and I know she's already had a seat.
Yeah, I'm ready. Hi, everyone.
And for the panelists, I will be introducing Craig Sale. Craig, yes. And he's the founder of Sea Captain. And Craig is the commercial director of Sea Capture, a clean tech company specializing in next generation carbon capture technology. He leads commercial development and industrial trials, including deploying, pioneering CCUS systems with partners such as Veolia. He joins the panel on building future-ready energy systems. I hope I don't bite my tongue tonight. Oh my God! Put your hands together. Fantastic. Okay, then I'll be introducing another panelist who will be joining them. Is Tony Tio, who is Renewables in Africa. And I'll just read a little bio of Tony Tio. He is the founder and CEO of Renewables in Africa, of clean energy engineering company and media platforms, driving project organizations and development across Kenya, Ghana, Nigeria, Cameroon, Mozambique, and Botswana. Author of The Wind Industry Outlook in Africa and recognized voice of BBC Africa. He joins the panel on building future-ready energy systems. Put your hands together. And of course, Dr. Hassan Prague. Please join us. Bridge. Head of the London Renewable Energy Lab and senior lecturer in sustainable energy engineering at the University of East London, with over 20 years developing solar and net zero building technologies, founder of Build Solar Limited and inventor of Solar Squad. He joins the panel on building future-ready energy systems. And of course, the last person joining the panel is Ovie Iroro, who's First Bank UK. Ovie Iroro is the head of sustainability of First Bank UK, leading the bank's sustainability strategy and driving clean transition through sustainable advisory, lending, and investment. He previously holds roles in corporate banking at NatWest, sustainable finance advisory at Deloitte, and responsible investment at Endless LLP. He also joins the panel. Please put your hands together for this wonderful panel. While I hand over to the lead for the panel conversation.
Thank you so much. You know, you've done all the hard work for me. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's really great to be here, and I'm very excited for this panel discussion, actually. So over the next 45 minutes, we're going to have a conversation about really looking beyond the headlines. What does it take really to transition to renewable energy? And we really want to understand from you all the practical, real-world solutions that are going to make this affordable and accessible, so that you as an audience can take some of this away and give everyone some food for thought in terms of how we move forward. So we've got a round of questions, which I'm going to come to various ones of you, but there will be some time at the end for all of you to ask some questions as well. So please do think about that as we run through. So I have these questions on my phone, so I'm going to read them out. Bear with me. Try not to print paper. So the first question, scaling renewables, storage and critical minerals. So question one, what is the biggest barrier to scaling renewables and storage fast enough to meet Africa's growing energy demand? So I'd like to hear firstly from Tony.
Okay. Thank you very much. It's always a challenge to be the one to start, isn't it, right? And some big expectation for the panel. So, my colleague, let me do the best I can to raise the standard. First of all, thank you to Giselle and Joey too for inviting me here, and obviously for all of you guys who are attending. So I understand it's a pre-conference, but I'm looking forward to the real conference in the same premises. So before I jump into your question, if you don't mind, so I'd like to maybe I would say, review a point that actually my good colleague Coyote, we know each other, so has said, which I think is important to mention. Obviously I'm a renewable guy, but I also believe in energy mix. That's absolutely certain. But I regularly hear people making the statement that renewable can't provide base load. And with all due respect to you, Coyote, obviously, I want to dispute this point because it is not, I would say, unfortunately, factual for me. Because people confuse renewable with solar and wind. I give you a very simple example. So, hydro is part of renewable. In hydro, actually, it's about 20% of the energy capacity of Africa. And many countries in Africa have run most of the power from hydro since independence, 1960. So we're talking about more than 60 years. And my own country, in Cameroon, where I'm from, the biggest part of energy that we do is hydro. And it runs the industry that we have. And many countries as well. Kenya as well is another one. Another one is geothermal, right? Geothermal as well, I would say there are about 1 gigawatt of geothermal in Kenya. Yes, people say it's only that part of the continent, but still, it's there. I'm just mentioning those two to say that it's not actually verified. I understand what Coyote is saying. I just say I prefer people saying solar and wind, not renewable, because what you actually display is a certain reputation for renewable. Say that we can't count on renewable for base, so which is not true. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, so it's important to be factual. So, sorry, I'm an engineer, so I like to make
No,
sure.
I love it, and obviously feel free to dispute this again later on the Q&A.
So,
But
yeah.
hold that thought.
Yes.
But tell me,
So,
I think that's a good point. But I
Yeah.
think what I would love to hear from you is if that is the case, and I agree with you personally. But if that is the case, what is it going to take, therefore, to scale those up so that you have got renewables 24/7?
Yeah, and that's an excellent question that you're asking. And I'm sure most of us have heard about the traditional reason that we hear about, which is capital, so infrastructure, supply chain, finance as well. And I agree that all of that is true. But I would like to give you an unconventional response, which I believe is quite fundamental, and sometimes we're missing this point. I think there are actually two key factors or two key barriers that I'll talk about. The first one I'll talk about the belief, and the second I'll talk about the decision to make things happen. This for me, those are the two big barriers, because when we talk about, for example, projects to develop across the continent, there are many projects actually in the continent people are actually developing. But the challenge that sometimes we are seeing is that people don't necessarily have all the belief needed to make the decision that are needed to take this project, from, I would say, from ideas all the way to execute it and complete the project. So that's number one. So definitely there's enough project there. So I talk about as well, when we talk about the investment, but also the infrastructure, absolutely, I agree with that. But those are, for me, symptoms of the execution challenge that we're having. Because when you look at those are infrastructure projects. So you always have multiple challenges, constraints that come to that. You have grid challenges, you have supply chain challenges, you have money challenges. You always have all of that. I mean, it's very rare to see. I'm sure Coyote will probably tell you that all the projects that they build, they've come across many challenges. But if all the time we're coming across a challenge, we go and question whether or not the project is actually needed or actually useful, it's a problem. Because from the completed project that I know that I've seen, people have a different mindset. They actually going from the decision that they've decided that they're going to do what is needed to make this project happen, and they then work backwards from that. Okay, so what kind of infrastructure and what kind of solution we need to put in place to actually have it there? On practical solution, for example, when a project comes close to financial close and they've done financial modeling, right? So you want to be asking the question, basically, what does it take to actually drive that all the way to commission? If we have this belief if we make this decision that we're gonna see things through, I'm sure we're gonna come up with a lot of solutions that are there. This is for me what is missing for us to take those projects and scale it. And by the way, talking about scaling, there's a report that was actually provided today by a company called Amber, and what they actually showing it. We're always talking about the solar the solar market in Africa. It's about 4 gigawatt that was actually developed, I think last year. In fact, this is not correct. What they demonstrated from their report, it's not actually 4, it's 17 gigawatts. And how did they find out about that? They looked at the Chinese export market. So the solar market in Africa is now pretty much as big as what you have in South America. That's it last year. But a lot of those data are just unreported because they come from what? CNI, commercial industrial. So definitely scale is there. And what I'm saying is actually the belief and the decision to make things happen, this is what will take us to the next level.
Brilliant, thank you. And Antonio, I'm going to put you on the spot. Just one final thought. So, in terms of the barriers, right? So, capital, infrastructure, supply chain, or policy. Out of those 4, what do you think is the biggest barrier? I know that's really hard, but if you could give one.
Oh, I think I'll talk about the usual suspect, right? So, capital is probably the one that is actually holding many of those projects back because all the rest. I mean, from the infrastructure perspective, technical perspective, to be honest, I think we're always able to find out a solution. But it's about getting the investor who has the patient capital and who believe enough to the project to make it happen. So I think I'll probably pick that one.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, I think that was a great response. Thank you. So we're going to round 2 now, where we're going to look at gas innovation. So, how can Africa use its gas resources to strengthen energy security without creating long-term dependence on fossil fuels? And that question goes to you, Greg.
Sorry, thank you very much. So I'm delighted to be invited today. My speciality is carbon capture, but I spent a lot of my career in oil and gas. So I think I'm going to start at the top and work down with this one. There's something about recognizing the need for energy access and industrial development in Africa. And that has to be the priority. I mean, you've got renewables, that's important, that's a long-term priority, but in the short term, you've got to think about that energy access. Having hundreds of millions of people still not having access to reliable electricity, that needs to come first. Energy is the foundation of healthcare, of education, of clean water. I mean, it's just the heart of economic opportunity. So gas has, I'd say, the most important role to play in the immediacy. But I see that as gas isn't the destination. Gas is more about the transition. So, what we've been hearing about today, using gas engines, replacing diesel, fuel oil, improving energy security and, electrical access to everyone, really important. Again, all being driven initially by gas. From an industrial perspective, and I love this space, you've got fertilizers, you've got cement, you've got steel. These are really critical industries about building a nation. They have to be a priority, and gas can unlock those. And again, all of that drives jobs. It drives, it strengthens the economy. So having sung the praises of gas, coming back to answer your question, what I think is really, really important is that gas brings money, gas brings revenues, and it's really important that revenue is reinvested in renewable energy. And when I say renewable energy, it's not just renewable energy, it's the gas grids that we've been talking about. It's the energy storage, so you can have energy 24/7 from not necessarily from the solar and the wind. So we talked about transmissions, we talked about storage, and clean technology is obviously about carbon capture. I've got to sing the praises of carbon capture. So I think the point here is gas absolutely is good. We should be driving that, but drive it with a thought for tomorrow. And I think that is sort of probably my last point in this space. If you're spending hundreds of millions, billions of dollars on gas infrastructure, thinking a little bit about the future and the renewable part of that. So if you are building a gas pipeline, let's say, think about, well, actually from the west, what we're doing is we're turning gas pipelines and putting CO2 in them and sending CO2 back the other way. So when you're building a gas pipeline, think about maybe where it's going to be, what spec it is, and actually, could it be used for hydrogen? Could it be used for CO2? And spending a bit of time designing it in a way that enables renewables to be deployed quickly and efficiently in the future.
I think there's some really good sort of practical ways in which you can kind of commercialize the flare gas way that you've just described. What about the methane reduction piece? Where do you see that going?
So we were talking, I'm going to touch on this. So I think that whole space is, there's three things. You've got to create a market for that small local gas. You've got to have the infrastructure to take advantage of it, but also you've got to have the policies to drive it. And if you're in that area of gas effectively going to waste, you know, we touched on this. You can't manage what you don't measure, right? And therefore, what you need is to really monitor that gas. You need to strengthen the reporting. You need to make sure that the regulation drives people not to flare and have, you know, meaningful penalties if they do. Because if you get that right, you'll rapidly change the behaviors. But that infrastructure needs to be there as well. So, you know, the mini grids we were talking about, the mini plants, that, you know, this isn't a technical challenge. It's a commercial one, and the heart of that really drives in measurement and regulation.
Thank you, Greg, for that. So now we're going to go to round 3. And by the way, do remember there is time for Q&A at the end. So if there's anything that sparked your interest so far, do hold that thought, and we'll come back to it. So round 3, modernizing grids and infrastructure. So what must change in Africa's power grids and infrastructure to make clean energy reliable and accessible at scale? And that's for you, Dr. Hassan.
Thank you very much. I would just like to touch base on the 2 questions as well before I answer mine. The first one, very short and sweet: where there is a will, there is a way. That was pretty much the summary what my friend has tried to portray in his answer. And of course, what Greg has pointed out is looking forward or preparing yourself to become future forward in your thinking in terms of developing the required infrastructure, using the gas economy to transform your lives for the future. So I think these were very, very important pivoting points. Now, when we look at renewable energy in general, unlike, you know, our centralized energy generation that happens miles away from the point of use, renewable energy generation is actually quite distributed in nature. This is the first and most important point that we need to understand. Unlike, you know, what is being generated using hydroelectricity, what is being generated using gas power, renewable energy electricity is quite flexible and is quite distributed. So imagine a simple home having a group of solar panels. You're immediately able to generate energy on your own at the point of utilization. Now, all right, if you're able to generate that electricity, and the only thing that you can do about it is that try to basically use all of it. So let's say 100% of what is being generated is directly being used. Although it being intermittent in nature, you're trying to bring in battery powered systems or battery systems, integrated it with solar PV, and then, like, you know, trying to meet your 24-hour demand cycle. But what after that is basically we are going to have, let's say, excess of energy. So Africa luckily is also blessed with a lot of solar energy potential. So that makes it possible that there are some pockets of time, seasons, where you are going to have excess energy generation. And because of the distributed nature, it's very important that there is appropriate grid infrastructure in place. So today, for example, somebody is installing solar PV right on the rooftop of this building. Any excess that is generated is simply going away into the national grid because it's got the capacity to absorb it. But is that again available in Africa? So that's the question that brings you to the thought that do we have resilient infrastructure in place? Do we have all the necessary grid in place that can, potentially absorb this, move it from one point to the other? The second most important point is looking at how we can manage this more intelligently. There is no barrier on technology today. Solar power has slashed down in terms of its price level, embraced greater heights in terms of its efficiency level, and is widely available and accessible, and is at a price point which is competitive enough from if you were to compare it with any kind of general power energy sources. So the thing is, there is all these positive factors in and around the availability of renewable energy. The generation is there, but are we able to manage the generation more intelligently? How prepared are we to make use of the energy that is being generated in the right manner? So there needs to be a very intelligent way to control what is being generated. And rather than, just having our electric vehicles or whatever kind of loads that are, particularly utilizing this energy that is being generated, can we manage that in a way which is more intelligent in order to cut down the actual generation process? Because in majority of the cases, what is happening is energy is being generated, no doubt, but either it is going waste or is not being utilized correctly. So I think these two points about resilient infrastructure and managing it intelligently would be really important.
I love that point about the intelligence piece as well. Do you see, and I'm going off script here, but I'm interested, do you see that AI has a real capacity and ability to do that?
Of course.
Tell us a bit.
And we are actively working on that at the London Renewable Energy Lab based in University of East London. We are actively trying to seek out solutions wherein we are able to predict what's going to happen next day. If you are able to predict correctly and you're able to train AI with models that can, basically predict what will be the generation capacity and how you're going to utilize, that is straight away going to save you 25 to 40% of energy. So yes, AI is going to play a very, very important role going forward in this.
I love that, thank you. Okay, now we are going to round 4. Let's talk about money and finance. So finance and enabling policy. What is the single biggest financing or policy reform needed to make African energy projects investable at scale? And this one is for you, Obi.
Thanks all for the very interesting contributions so far. I think I might just sort of point back to one of the earlier conversation points to throw a bit of a spanner in the works as well.
Go for it.
Because I think sometimes it's good to play devil's advocate slightly. So I think the first point around renewables and baseload I found very interesting. It works well in theory, but not every country has the opportunity to, for example, have big solar or geothermal projects. So for most countries, it's actually not feasible or realistic. And I think even where it's feasible, you also have issues, not just if, for example, like renewables work well on the climate point of view, but for example, nature and biodiversity, you could have issues there where if you're, for example, starting a hydro project where you have to essentially flood like a whole a massive area of land, that could sort of create like a few other like cascading effects. And when it comes to geothermal as well, you also have community resistance to things like drilling, for example, and other seismic activity. So I think when we look at these things as a whole, we have to understand, I think it's best if we also look at the limitations more realistically. That's the best way that we could actually, I guess, fund these things realistically. So just wanted to add this couple of points first. On the financing point, I think the biggest policy reform which could work well is if regulators could institute a kind of green I guess, capital adjustment. And for those of us who don't understand capital adjustments, so as a bank, for every dollar we lend, we need to hold a certain amount of capital, readily accessible against that loan, for example, just to deal with the risks from that lending. And what a green capital adjustment is means that if the regulators could institute that banks need to hold less capital against green or sustainable projects, then that means we as banks would actually have an incentive to lend more towards these sorts of projects. And I think that would be the biggest single shift in capital availability that could happen. I know the EU considered that for a few years. There's been consultations, but so far there hasn't necessarily been any movement on that. And looking at our bank, one of the key things is when we're looking at funding any project, whether or not it's sustainable or not, we're competing against other, I guess, non-sustainable type deals. And truly, there's no real incentive for us to fund anything sustainable unless we start looking at things like impact metrics and further down the line. And on the impact side, I think another interesting policy point of view could be looking at financed emissions. So financed emissions literally mean all the emissions that we as a bank are responsible for lending to. So for example, if we lend to oil and gas or other heavy industries, we're also responsible for those emissions. But so far, under the PCAF standards, so that stands for Platform for Carbon Accounting Financials, if we as banks lend to renewable energy projects, which would actually lead to a reduction in emissions, we actually don't get to see the benefits of that in our financed emissions. So if the standard setters and the organizations behind, I guess, carbon accounting could come together to also allow banks to start to recognize the positive impact through renewables that we fund, that would also be another big sway to help the conversation. If there's no capital benefits, we could also have it from an impact. Because at the moment, the impact metrics are purely qualitative. So we're looking at, okay, for example, we can quantify the impact in terms of things like, even the quantitative ones like the number of jobs created, and all of that still doesn't necessarily have a knock-on effect to actual financing at the end of the day. So those are two big, I guess, financial and regulatory and policy levers that we could use to really drive up an increase in financing for things like renewables, for example.
Thank you. Is there a real-world project that you could point to that would you could compare those two areas of focus?
So this actually applies to all projects. So for example, if we as a bank were funding like a large-scale renewables project, we'd be able to for example, offer the financing cheaper to the project developers because it costs us less to actually provide that loan. So that would essentially apply to all sustainable projects across the board. Of course, there's going to have to be some taxonomy that determines what's sustainable versus what's not. But this will apply broadly across the board as well. And then we'll be able to look at, taking impact metrics for when the project is up and running. We could then say, based on this amount of megawatts that would have been generated through gas or coal or whatever it replaced, we've actually saved X amount of emissions, and we'll actually be able to offset that against our other financed emissions figures, which would then go towards, I guess, meeting our net zero targets at the end of the day, which currently doesn't happen.
Thank you. Okay, so we're on to round 5, which is our last one. So questions coming up very soon. So strengthening UK Global South collaboration. Beyond funding, what should meaningful UK Global South collaboration deliver for Africa's energy transition? And I'd like to just go across the line here, just perhaps 2 sentences or 3 sentences each, if we could just keep it brief. Maybe starting with you, Obi, as you've got the mic.
I think one of the interesting points would be like a kind of technical knowledge expertise transfer. So earlier this year, I was speaking at a conference around nuclear fusion, and one of the key things is that the UK is actually the most advanced in the world in terms of commercializing nuclear fusion. And if we can take the framework that they've developed, all the R&D that's already been done, and I guess transfer that knowledge, and that could really help provide the technical expertise and also the regulatory framework for governments to be able to essentially learn and copy and paste and actually start to drive commercial adoption across the continent.
Thank you.
I'm going to be cheeky and twist this a little bit towards carbon capture.
Okay.
Because I haven't had a chance to talk about that yet. So understandably, carbon capture is not going to be on the top of Africa's agenda. I sort of get that.
No, it is.
It is. Excellent. That's why I'm here. Well, sorry, let me come back to why it should be. energy access has to be a priority for everyone. That it just has to. But I think carbon capture, people look at carbon capture say on traditional emissions, but I think there's a significant long-term opportunity around carbon capture in Africa. And let me just take this off track. I mean, Africa has an extensive amount of biomass resources through whether it's the sugar industry, ethanol production, agriculture and forestry. And if the CO2 from these industries could be captured and permanently stored, it removes carbon dioxide from the air. In other words, it delivers negative emissions. And the question is, so what? But many, sorry, I know. But it's really important. This is a great opportunity. So many companies in the West are struggling to remove all their emissions. There's some emissions that are left over that are really hard and difficult to abate. And those companies are paying, and because of this, there's an emerging market that's growing rapidly in negative emissions. And so, and those emissions are going at a quite high premium. So from that perspective, Africa's got an opportunity not only to produce energy, to produce products, but also to provide a climate service for the world. And so if that could attract investment, it could attract, it creates jobs, it creates infrastructure, and a brand new industry for Africa, providing a climate service to the world. So that's sort of thoughts down.
Okay.
Just about.
Thank you.
I'm sure I've taken my time. But there is quite genuinely, I really do see not trying to sequester Africa's emissions, but taking biomass and taking CO2 out of the atmosphere and providing that service to the West. I mean, Africa has an abundant biomass resource. It really is a natural continent, to be able to provide that service to the world.
Thank you. Penny.
Okay, I think we talked about already the knowledge sharing, so we definitely need to go beyond just providing the money. It's about exchanging knowledge, capability, and helping, supporting, I would say, countries in Africa in executing projects. I think UK has a lot of experience in that, so how can we learn from that? And maybe the litmus test, it's finding out whenever a project gets done, that collaborative project. So try to understand what kind of asset are we leaving behind. Is it a functional asset that has developed local capability, and more importantly, sort of develop a capability without having some external dependency. So if we're able to do that, I think we're moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Hassan.
I'll try to keep it short. My first important word is equitable partnership. So it's very important when a proper partnership is in place, which looks after a project, bringing people to work shoulder to shoulder, trying to contribute equally. Okay, so in that way, that would be one of the first and most important things. The second important thing would be looking at upskilling people. So it's very important to know that we talked about knowledge transfer, technology transfer, but it shouldn't be like one-way route going from here to there, but it should be developed in such a way so that in a couple of years, when this is happening, there are people out and about there who can independently do the work themselves.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, well that concludes our panel discussion. So I'm now going to just open up to questions. Did you agree with what our panelists said? Did you disagree with anything that was said? Please put your hand up and either state a comment, a question. Yes, sir, at the back.
Is there a mic or I just speak?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, hi. My name is Sagar. My interest is systems change, and my roots is India, where my roots are, and then also friends in Africa as well, or a lot of global south. So I'm asking this question from a systems change perspective because for the last 15 years, I'm told a lot that the indigenous people, whether in Africa or India or South America, wherever they are, they're very important. They shouldn't be left behind. At the same time, I read that the indigenous people, for some unknown reason, God has put the indigenous people land to be where 60% of the minerals are for this green transition. And I was like, I found that very interesting. When I traced the supply chains for these minerals that are leaving our land in India, and we see a lot of forests being lost and stolen, and we use a lot of diesel to power these supply chains, these minerals are being turned into solar panels, wind turbines, electric cars. And there's a lot of human rights abuses in Africa and India and the global south. And I'm thinking, hold on a second, I thought this is about reducing emissions. That's not happening in India. I don't see it happening in Kenya where my friends are. So my question is I'm not in support, firstly, my comment is I'm not in support of this green transition purely because of the fact that why should we, in the global south, wherever these minerals are being mined, why should we give up the indigenous rights that we have to our forests and our land to mine these minerals for a green transition when on one side we are being told this is about saving the planet, on the other side, to save the planet, you have to remove the indigenous people and displace them. So at the same time, you can't really do it without us. So to access the minerals, you have to remove us. So the question is if you want a green transition, go ahead, do it. But then don't expect the indigenous people to be there in 20 years' time. If you want to save us and give us sovereignty to our land, then you don't have a right to this green transition. What's your thought on that?
So thank you very much for the question. So I think what perhaps the question is here then is how do we balance? Thank you.
Well, it's not even about balance because it's our land. We should have first right of refusal.
Well, let me ask the question to the panelists in terms of how should we look therefore at the green transition, but obviously within that there is a definite need to look at things like social and human rights within the work that is done. So how do we look at that? How should we be looking at that? Would anyone like to tackle that question?
Doesn't exist.
Thank you very much for your question. I think it's a very important point that you have pointed is looking at rather than a global transition, you're thinking of more of a local transition. So let's say you have the resources that you feel can enable a green transition for your local economy. I think definitely you should be given the first right to do that. But thinking of it as just a resource that would just be limited to your local economy or local place where it is being mined, that is actually thinking of limiting the resources, because you would often find that majority of the resources, they might be at certain places. Not every place might be blessed with all the resources that are needed. Just think about, like, the train that you would have taken to come here, or the car that you would have ridden to come to this place. You would have used petrol or diesel. If it was just restricted to that place where it was being mined, then obviously you wouldn't have been able to take forward that journey. So yes, as long as it is not depriving the local people, obviously you should think of the greater good and see how it can benefit others. Anything further you can?
I think I'd like to appreciate the question first, and it's definitely not an easy question to tackle. And I'm also coming from Global South, definitely. But what I'd like to also point out is actually, I don't think there is an industry out there who's actually perfect. I think we should actually move on to improve things on a step-by-step basis. But I believe personally that the green transition is definitely necessary. And if somebody was actually having a doubt, just look at the summit that we just had here. As simple as that, right? So we may politicize that the way we want. there's still a situation. Now, the question is, how do we execute that so that it's more equitable? That is actually the point. But we can't say that actually it's not necessary because I think all the industry, we see what's happening. And this is why I believe, and that's actually, by the way, one of the reasons I'm in this industry. Because I think if you're not on the table, you're on the menu, simple as that, right? I want to be one of those people actually contributing to shaping this industry and defending the people who look like me. Basically, as simple. And I think I'm not afraid to say that. That's one of the biggest drivers. I think when I run renewables in Africa, I say we are not the one, but one of the African voice in the industry. And I believe that we need to, as summarize, you say, involve to evolve. That's the way I would actually put it. Yes, there is definitely a lot of abuse happening, but there is. I agree, say shake your head. That's fine. I think I respect your point. But what I'm personally saying to you is actually, this is actually what I feel. So I'm more than happy to have multiple conversation. But let me give a chance to my colleagues to maybe say one or two words about it.
It's a great question.
Who wants to answer it?
Global warming is happening, right? The planet is in trouble, right? And we get up every morning, we do whatever we do, but we're in trouble, and it's going to get worse. And we're sleepwalking into a disaster. Now, the human species probably survive. Yeah, we'll find a way. We'll get around to it. You know, we'll spend money fixing problems, building dams, whatever it is, dealing with emergencies. But what about the creatures in the sea? What about the birds? What about the rest of the species that we're just
deep sea ocean mining, bruv. Deep sea ocean mining. You need to go, right.
So I care about the whole environment, not just us. So I honestly I feel really passionate about the environment, and I do believe we need to fix it, right? I disagree completely with your position there. However, how we do it, which is the really important thing here, has to be done respectfully. For whatever resources are required, whatever we need to do to fix this problem, has to be done responsible to the local communities and anybody that's impacted. I don't think we can say that you can't. This is a global problem. We're all part of it, whether we like it or not.
And global problem built on African resources.
You have a very passionate view, and I respect that completely.
It's the sovereign view.
Thank you. Did you want to make a comment? And just to say thank you, we'll come to you next. It's really important that we respect everyone's opinion in the room. Okay.
Great. No, I think one of the key issues here is probably the perception. And I think with renewables, very specifically, it's one of the systems that's actually been able to empower indigenous communities. So, for example, I think Greg said earlier, he really advocated for the benefits that giving people energy access is probably the one thing that can transform people's livelihoods. It gives them access to, for example, purified water, healthcare, getting connected to the world, like mobile banking systems. I think it has such a transformative effect. You have local indigenous communities that are now being connected to grids, which had never, they hadn't been connected to grids, but now they actually have the opportunity to access power to then actually transform those resources and use them locally. Because previously, I think the messaging has been around companies from the West, for example, coming in to sort of take resources and take them away to be to their benefit. But here you're actually having these resources being used to benefit the local communities, and this is something that renewables are doing in a very distinct way. I think, of course, we can't ignore the issues that you raised, and hence my points earlier around when you're assessing a project, you don't just look at it from one point of view. We look at climate, we look at nature, we look at biodiversity, we look at human rights when we're assessing projects to fund in the bank as part of our sustainability framework. So we don't just look at it through one lens. And if we as the ones holding the, finance keys are the ones looking at projects like that and stewarding the funding that way, then I think that definitely translates down to the ground. And we're not doing it in a lip service way. We're actually looking at making positive impacts through the financing that we provide. Hence why I mentioned the fact that we're looking at those impact metrics of each of the projects we fund, not just looking at things from one lens, where we're looking at impacts on the actual communities, because at the end of the day, if the communities don't support those projects, then they can't be successful long term.
Thank you.
Another question here. I'll just pass the mic.
Thank you. Nick Rosen from Off Grid. And of course, I'd like to see much more off-grid energy here in Britain. And I feel like the work that you're doing is very inspirational for Western advanced societies to learn from and be able to apply that technology, which quite often we transferred ourselves to developing countries. We now need it back. And I'd love to know your business models that were successful in developing countries and how they might apply back here in the advanced industrial countries.
Who'd like to take that one on?
Interesting. So how can we adapt?
So he's talking about what kind of business models
From the energy perspective, isn't it?
to learn and inspire.
Well, I think what I could very briefly say, so hopefully I've fully understood your question, sir. You're right in saying that there is a lot of, I'm going to just take advantage of what we've just gone through as a summer, basically. What we have seen, for example, it's that a country like the UK, it's not necessarily equipped to have long summers, very sunny summers, actually, where temperature is very high, because there's not enough ACs built around. For example, my son, I think there was a couple of days, or 2 or 3 days, they missed actually at school because temperature was too hot. They couldn't keep, and essentially what we actually found out, and it's interesting because I've addressed that, because I think I have a YouTube platform where sometimes I regularly, every Sunday, talk about topic like that. And I was saying that these are challenges that many African countries are going for ages, actually. They're having to constantly adapt. In fact, one of the biggest challenge around the climate change is the fact that, yes, I definitely believe that Africa was not guilty of what is happening right now, but we're struggling the most out of it. Yeah. And countries have had to, because there's definitely lack of finance or investment, so they've had to adapt to basically the new way of life. And it's just now that countries in Europe are finding out, oh, actually, with what's happening right now, we need to completely reshift the way. Basically, we are not built to sustain this kind of temperatures. And this is where I believe they could actually go back and learn from African community and society what they have done to develop their resilience. And this is maybe one model that I think the West could learn from. Completely rethink about also the grid. How do we? Because one of the things in the country of Africa, because we want to accelerate the electrification, we understood that if we only rely on grid, it's going to take far too long. That's why we actually move into distributed power, so local grids basically. So, and because the Western world is having to rethink as well the way to adapt to climate change, they will also rethink about how do they actually adjust, obviously, the grid system in here. And in many places, I'm sure you know about that, they're also talking about maybe decentralizing part of it. And if they're going down this route, I think obviously they can learn a lot from Africa. Just like what we're using right now here, many people don't know, but actually this was actually developed first. Basically, the mobile industry is coming from East Africa. People don't know that actually, and the rest are just taking that up and developing much further. I believe in the energy, both in terms of resilience, but in terms of also developing distributed network, local network. There is at least one or two things that I would say the Western world can learn from Africa. So hopefully I responded a little bit to your question, sir.
That was a great response. Thank you. If we've got any other questions, anything? Is this lady here join? This lady?
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. And firstly, I kind of understand and resonate with the conversations we are talking about because prior to coming to this country, I spent most part of my life in Nigeria. And so the conversations and even initial speaker's speech, I resonate with that. So here, I'm a student research assistant with the university's Talent Bank. And as an MSc student, my interest in research is on renewable energy and household energy transition in Nigeria. So from what I know in my research, I do know that over 40% of Nigeria's energy consumption comes from the household sector, then you now get to industry and transport. And also from the research that I do know, a good number of what we see in Nigeria is a growing population and urbanization, which we see the grid or the national grid in Nigeria has unreliability, like the electricity supply cannot meet the demand that is placed on it. And we see from research that over 50% of households in Nigeria depend on fossil fuel generators. And Nigeria is Africa's biggest importer of fossil fuel generators. And we now see a growing market of solar home systems for households in Nigeria. So there's an upward trend of household solar adoption in Nigeria. So the question I have two questions, although they are intertwined. The question I have, which will help me in my research and is relevant to what we are talking about on energy access, is how do we ensure that the transition to renewable energy does not reproduce existing inequalities in energy access, particularly where the upfront cost of clean technology remains a barrier for poorer households? And then the second one is, what policies and institutional reforms do you consider critical for ensuring that transition is not only technologically viable, but also affordable and inclusive for households and communities in Africa and Nigeria? Thank you.
That's a great question.
Do you want to take the questions or we take all questions at once?
I just want to
Answer that question, especially the one on equity.
Yeah, I think I want to just one quick point and I'll share with you. When we're talking about how do we make sure that essentially renewable solar solutions are much more affordable to, I would say, to the people. I would say one of the big challenges, and I'm sure you back me up on that, it's the cost of finance in Africa. This is really actually where some of the biggest bottleneck it tends to be, because the cost of finance, if you compare, for example, the Western world, it's nothing basically. But for example, to get a loan pretty much across Africa is very difficult to get single-digit basic interest. So usually talking about, the lowest tends to be about 8, 9, if not much more than that, double digits. And this is where, and obviously, when you are energy provider, you just have to, reflect that on passing down to your customer. And most of the study that I have done as well myself, so a big part of the issue is also obviously which research you're looking at, how you're pricing risk, right? So I'm not a finance person, so I don't want to go too much into that. I don't want to say things that don't make sense. But I believe if we can address this point, this could hopefully make those solutions much more affordable. But let me just share to my colleagues.
I'll go there. So to your point, I think use gas. Yeah, I mean, we want a greener environment, but I think access to reliable electricity is a higher priority in Africa than renewables. So I would honestly get that reliable energy, get electricity available reliably to everyone, drive healthcare, drive education, drive clean systems, drive economic opportunity. So that would be the first answer to that. Use gas. From a policy perspective, I would absolutely try and ensure that policy says revenues from gas drives investment in renewables.
Well, thanks. I absolutely echo those points. As you said, if there's that reliable source of electricity, then that stat that you mentioned about importing those diesel generators or petrol generators instantly vanishes or diminishes significantly. I think the second point on the consumer side, actually, which we haven't touched on, the consumer credit side, I think consumer credit reforms would be a big point of view, because then you could actually give the households to then borrow to actually have these solar systems installed, and then you can then spread the cost over a longer time frame. So that upfront cost isn't significant. Of course, we still have the issue of the interest rates in Africa being relatively high, so you still have that point of view. But I think the other gentleman who asked the question around what the West could learn from Africa, I think one of the key barriers to British households, for example, taking on solar panels and solar systems is things like, there's lots of red tape, lots of regulation, and the barriers to entry is really high. So what should be relatively simple installs, then you need to have certain, the installers need to go through a lot more, stringent checks, and the systems need to be commissioned and all of that. Not necessarily saying there's a bad thing, but there's always a better middle ground. And I think the agility and the speed of innovation which you see across Africa, I think that's one thing we could learn from. It's in the news like lately that the UK has just sort of, I guess, allowed us to start having things like plug-in solar, balcony solar systems, which actually gives households another way to invest in a very easy to install and, I guess, lower barrier to entry. So I think it's all about lowering that barrier to entry so more people can actually start to benefit and dip their toes into renewables, and then you can start to see that cascading effect once there's the increased familiarity. And also with increased adoption, prices should also technically go down as well.
Thank you. We have further contribution from Kayode, if you don't mind.
Just to keep in contribution on your question around how to ensure that equity is maintained as you transition from gas to renewables. I think one way to ensure that equity is, if you have the abundance of solar energy in Africa, the solar panels that harness this energy, should be manufactured locally. So right now we have a lot of importation from China. So how to reduce that, import dependency on the solar panels should be a priority for African countries, because then Greg's question about using, revenues from gas to develop, renewables becomes very important, because you can harness abundant gas resources to fire the plants that produce the panels, and then that way you reduce a lot of pressure on the foreign currencies in these African countries and reduce that inequality significantly. So I just thought to add that to the wonderful answers they've given to you.
Thank you, Kayode. One more last question for today. Okay, we're done. Am I gonna ask my one question? My question goes to Sea Capture. Okay. In the discourse today, there are a lot of things about CO2 capture into the ground and how we can get incentives for it. So that's a new economy for the African market. So I was going to say or contribute to it on the capacity that with what we've been doing with all the carbon credits so far, some countries have benefited from it. I know Ghana very well has benefited in West Africa, but a lot of there's been a lot of discrepancies from countries like Nigeria, where the integrity of the who is going to help me with this?
The integrity of the credit.
Yeah, so there's been the question. There's always a question or integrity issues when it comes to our own what's it called? Our data for carbon capture. So what's the opportunity there to say if the country, not the continent, it's Africa, if some countries in Africa actually have credibility issues in terms of accessing the climate finance market, then why should we even want to tilt to CO2 capture and thinking that we will also benefit from that incentives. And that's one question. The second question, I don't know if Ovia will be able to give me the answer to the financial architecture system of the world. It's like somebody on the panel touched on it today. I think Tony, you did in the discourse when we talked about it's like about holding the cost of finance. It's like putting a chain on a child's leg and asking them to run. If the African economy has times 4% interest rate on compared to her counterparts in the other countries, how do you expect investment to be profitable? So I think these are my two questions. And the last addition is during London Climate Week. The buildings in the UK needs to learn from Africa. We need to become more sustainable. We went to Mansion House. I don't know how many of us went to E3G during London Climate Week. And we couldn't stay there for 2 hours in Mansion House because it was burning. It's not like these modern ones that we are in right now. So there's a lot of relearning and adapting and unlearning. It's all about like a balanced energy future. I said a lot of things, but I had some questions in the bit. I don't know if you can answer 2 of my questions: finance and carbon markets. Thank you.
Thanks, Joy.
So carbon credits, the carbon markets are new, they're evolving, they're emerging. Not all carbon credits are the same. If you plant a tree, the tree grows, it takes CO2 out of the air, but then the tree dies, the tree gets processed, the tree gets burnt. So it's not all carbon credits are the same. And from my vision around Africa has an abundant amount of biomass. The world needs negative carbon credits. Wow, what an opportunity. So that's where my fundamental argument is. And if you are taking biomass and quite genuinely capturing it and putting it back down the empty gas wells or sequestering it permanently, they are very high quality credits. And it's those high quality credits that go for that premium amount of money. And if you've got high quality credits going for a premium amount of money, then you've got a wonderful industry. So to your point about carbon markets, it's all about credits. It's all about the quality of the credit.
That's the gold standard is verified that the credits, the integrity of the credits.
And it's the integrity of the credits, exactly. It's the quality of them and the integrity. And if you've got biomass processing like you have today, taking the CO2 from that and putting it underground will give you those high quality credits for sure.
Thanks. And I think to echo Greg's points as well, I think there's huge opportunities for carbon capture and storage in Africa. I think one of our the success stories that we like to talk about, for example, like Dangote, when it comes to like cement plants, I think there's huge opportunity for direct capture. I don't know if it's something that you investigate, and also things like biochar as well. Converting that biomass to help, increase like soil health, to also help like the agriculture industry as well and regenerate the soils as well. That's also another huge opportunity in terms of generating high quality credits. On the finance point of view, I think this one is inherently complex because there's so many different aspects. So I think one of the key points is, the geopolitical situation is something that Western investors can't necessarily ignore. The ease of doing business, the within each of these countries is what sort of contributes towards those high interest rates, because essentially it all cascades from the sovereign credit rating, and then that's then cascades down to how much interest like you charge when you lend to these projects. And I think in order to reverse that trend, we need to then see a track record of successful projects being delivered. So then we as banks and institutions can also then take, comfort in those successful projects to then start to continue to cascade that across the ecosystem. Another thing that would really help as well, of course, as you know, cooperation with multilateral institutions, government guarantees as well to drive these large-scale projects as well. And also, and not just sort of shifting the responsibility from the private sector, because we banks also need to start rethinking things like our risk appetites. So lots of renewables projects tend to have their benefits go over a longer time scale. But then when you look within the bank, for example, we tend to fund shorter term projects. So if we as banks also start looking at our risk appetites and also being able to sort of extend our horizon when it comes to how quickly we're expecting a return, because this needs longer term strategic views, and many financial institutions still think fairly short term, obviously because they're facing pressures from risk management as well. This is also where capital reforms can come in as well. If the UK EU regulators can also allow us to sort of lend to green projects and make it cheaper for us to lend, then that would also drive a reduction in the interest rates that we can then charge the end project developers, which would also lead to an increased availability of capacity across the continent.
Okay, I think we're done. Thank you so much, everyone, for the thoughtful questions, and big thank you. Please join with me in giving them a big clap.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Please keep clapping while they go to your seats.
You want to let me help you with the mic. You can join.
Thanks a lot, Helen.
I'm so good.
I was feeling glad that I'm very good.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
So that was really very enlightening and thought-provoking. Thank you so much for that session. That was powerful, and all the questions and contributions so far. Thank you so much. We are almost rounding up right now. But before we do that, finally, I will be calling and introducing Joy to come in, just to come and have a word and share some insights with us. I will be introducing her. Joy she of course is the ED Executive Director and Convener of GISEL Network, CIC, leading a high-level international dialogues on energy, education, and environment across 23 plus global partners. She previously serves as intern regional manager, Africa at the World Energy Council, and is a research fellow with the Open Global Power 2026 program. And she's definitely conveying the 2026 GISEL August pre-conference. Now I highlight on pre-conference because the conference is going to be held in December, isn't it? From the 15th to the 17th of December. So there's going to be a lot of information, highlights, more, there's going to be a lot about that. So just keep your eyes on the information button and post, and you'll have all the information you need. Put your hands together for Joy. Remember that she's my girl. She's also part of my organization, which is the Women Evolving Inspiring Nations Network. That's WIN Nation. So we are a collection of very, very powerful, intentional women who are on the sustainability journey. So put your hands together once again for this gorgeous
There's a lot's been done tonight, short night, 2 hours, and I'm trying to make sure we put in everything in 2 hours. I really always want to connect the dots on why we're here. So I will just start by getting everyone to settle in on this. Is it this video and then make sure of us. I need help with.
I often think about replacing fossil fuels with renewable energy, but the transition is much more. How we can make it happen.
It's cold, right?
Fuel. Or therming, transforming the technology towards its end message. Expanding access. What energy source? It's about recreating energy systems. Net zero and beyond.
So I just want to say a round of applause to everyone that made it here. So while we're here, it's all about shaping the systems, the energy systems for the future. And in that lies, with a lot of people came here really early today. I just want to thank those that have been here. Some people have been here since like 4:30. Thank you so much for being so prompt. And for all of us that came to join the party after, thank you for being here. I stand on all existing protocols. We win some, we lose some. So I would just go straight into what GCEL 2026 is about. By God's grace, this is our third convening. We've done 2024. A lot of people in the house. If you've been part of GCEL, if you've attended GCEL conference in the past, please just raise up your hand. I just want to just scoop around the room and then, okay, yes. No, just keep your hands up. I just want to see. Oh, I think we have about 50. No, we don't even have up to 50% of GCEL in the room. Oh, no, you have. You don't have your hands out. Oh, we don't have up to 50%. So that means we're converting new souls for the Global Sustainable Energy and Leadership Network. This was born out of the passion of the gap that we realized in the system, that when people talk about energy systems, the World Energy Council's trilemma talks about energy, trilemma talks about the energy security, it talks about equity, that's affordability, also talks about environmental sustainability, that's the energy trilemma. But it doesn't really cover a huge chunk of the access gap. And we think access is very important. If you have 54 African countries, the sub-Saharan African countries, a lot of them still don't have access. And that's why we're focusing in 2026 on powering nations through a balanced and sustainable energy pathway. What are we trying to say? As the big brother of developing countries, what are we going to do from here, the powerhouse, Palace of Westminster, where we'll be having our fine dining. If you're part of the fine dining last year, raise up your hand. Only 2 people. So we need more people to be part of our fine dining this year. And graciously we have the University of Westminster host us. Because in the past we've done Greenwich, we've done what's that, East London? And it was really far from the parliament. And today we are just at the tip of the parliament today to the one of the most powerful houses in Europe, where we'll be having this conversation. So about GCEL, we are registered CIC in the UK. So yes, we have our charity status, and that's why the University of Westminster is happy to be associated with us. We have a governance doctrine on how we run. Our treaty really aligns with the Paris Agreement, saying we want a sustainable future. What is sustainability? We talk about people and planet. We need to ensure that the planet is good enough to inhabit the people, but we need the people to also make sure that the planet is healthy. So yes, so we also support the 1.5 degrees pathway. The SDG frameworks, our work really aligns to SDG 7, Its linkages. SDG 7, I think, is the silver lining that runs the rest of the 17 SDG goals and its 169 targets. If we don't have access to energy, we really cannot drive economic development across board, be it education, health, industry, whatever, sustainable cities, life below the water. We need technology, and for us to use technology, we need access to energy. Our focus areas are really education. We're sensitizing people right now. Energy and then environment. We're particular about energy, but yet we know that we need to have the whole environmental protection as a system designed for development. Next slide is talking about light, learning, and livelihood. It's just the SDG 4 is how we got into the industry, talking about education, but we understand that without SDG 7, we cannot even talk about SDG 4 and in turn human capital development and the rest of the SDG. So we just kind of tagged our powering conversation into light, learning, and livelihood. Not to read too much into the script, I will take you into the nitty-gritty of why we're here. So if you look at this graph I have here, you will see African countries. I really want to get your attention. For those that are not looking at the screen, please, this is the reason why we're having discourse. And you see the African countries. You can see South Sudan has less than 10% electrification, precisely 5. If you can see Burundi, you see Chad, you see Malawi is still about 16% electrification. You see a lot of countries struggling. And what are we talking about? Is this going to be an aid-dependent conversation? How can we create partnerships that can transform this from aid to agency? Even my country, where I'm from, Nigeria, is having about 61%. I thought we would have had the privilege of having the Gambians in the room today. On that place, you see Gambia says they're about is it 40-60% electrification? Why am I struggling to see Gambia on this graph? And so this graph says Gambia is about 67 or so. But one thing the graph did not tell us is what form of electrification are we talking about? Are they connected to the grid? Is it off grid? Is it so? The graph hasn't told us that yet, but this is a World Bank annual report that they give based on where we are in terms of electrification. So this year we're looking at priority countries. We're looking at DRC. DRC has one of the largest belts of the critical minerals that we need to power our countries. We are looking at Ethiopia. Ethiopia is the home of the African Union and where all the things that decides Africans' future is supposed to be cooked out from. We're also looking at Nigeria. Nigeria is one of the biggest in terms of population African nation in the world. So just make you understand where we are going with this. We are not just having a conversation or having an advocacy. We're having an advocacy that would lead to actual impact. I'll take you through our track record of things that we have done. If you follow our journey in the past, you could see that. Trying to see if there's anyone in the room. Has anyone ever attended our New York convening? The closest person that would have is Helen, but she did make it last year. So yeah, so we have regular convenings in New York at the UN. We do CSW, we do, but majorly is UNGA. That's where we have the big names in the room. And then we try to have conversations about energy access. At the London is this conference that we are cooking up because we realize instead of just waiting to the day of the conference every year, we should start having pre-conferences and gathering people and see how we can build momentum to ensure that the conference become more, to ensure the conference is, has the outcome we actually want to see. So we should have build-ups until the main conference this year is going to be in December. Funny enough, people ask, Morgan asked, why do we have to wait until December? The student community might not be there as beneficiaries of this. It's strategically positioned that we need to understand COP conversations out of COP, like COP31 will be this year in November in Turkey, in Antalya. Conversations out of COP are very critical to energy systems. So we need to finish up COP, and prior to Davos at the World Economic Forum in January, we now have to sit in between those two conversations, and those conversations actually shapes global power. So you understand why GCL is always falling in between the COP and Davos. We don't just want to drive influence, we also want to drive impact. And so this is our track record. We hope to do more. So this is our look ahead. This is what 2026 has looked like. We participated in Davos. Just mentioned about a few, but this is where we actually do some small circles around tables, like what we're having here now. So we did Davos this January. We did spring meetings in DC, from New York to DC. It was a long March, April, because it was back to back. And June, London Climate Week recently. And we're looking forward to UNGA in September. So we'll be in New York again next month. There's the UN General Assembly and the New York Climate Week coming at the same time during the high level week in the UN, and after which we have to head to COP, and then we prepare for GCL again, and another year starts. Another cycle starts in 2027. We hope to maintain this calendar, and then maybe we would improve where necessary, but this is what we have. And we've also just introduced, this is the first pre-conference we'll be having. We've just introduced the pre-conference. We never ever have held a pre-conference before. This is the first of its kind. I hope I hope you had a good time coming here. I hope it was educative enough. I hope you're going home with key takeaways. And I hope you see a reason to want to remain with the network and seeing how to contribute to the system, the future energy systems that we're trying to create. So now we have ticked the box for August 27. We have a look ahead for our next pre-conference in October 29th. By God's grace, I hope that the Ethiopians have confirmed that they will be participating in October, and I hope we have a bigger outcome in October. But what we are just trying to do is to ensure that we are able to build partnerships that will translate for the GCEL 2026 conference, because we don't want to do it alone, and people doing different works. How can we bring all that siloed effort together to actually make real impact? And when we look at the energy systems, we broke it down into 4 verticals. So the 4 verticals, we're looking at critical minerals, we're looking at renewable energy storage. That's a very big part of the future energy system. So if you know companies that would like us to feature them at this event that are extracting critical minerals, or they're in energy storage or the renewable space, we would like to work with them. We need more, because I think we've done good with the academias. We have done great with the government. We have gaps with the industry, and we want all the industries to please fasten their seatbelt and bring their hands on board, because without industry, it's all just talk, and no real action. And then we want some action in the play. So we're talking about renewables, critical minerals, energy storage, 1 vertical, 2nd vertical, gas. We're going to be strictly focusing with this script. We want to run with this script because we feel the clean energy and then gas innovation, traditional energy, fit these 2 into the 3rd vertical, which is grid modernization and optimization. We will have good energy systems for electrification for developing countries. And of course, the 4th vertical, which was later brought in at the end of the day because it wasn't in the beginning. But later we brought it in because we realized that you can't talk about 1, 2, 3 without focusing on energy policies and financing. Because without finance, it's just talk, and no action. So we need the finance architecture to enable energy systems to work better. I've explained all that. Just trying to show you what we are. So we need the stakeholders. We can't do it alone. We need you to help us get there. How can we get traditional energy companies? How can we get the DFI commercial banks? We need the stakeholders upstream, because we're going to be talking heavily on decarbonization, CCUS, how to there's a lot we're going to be touching on this. We want more academias in the room. I think myself and Christina, in our previous meeting, she said, Joy, we're not having this pre-conference and these conferences with just Westminster. You need to go back and reach out to all the other universities. And thank you very much, Dr. Hassan, for representing. A round of applause for Dr. Hassan. He's been our energy champion, because in every university we go to, we find energy. Dr. Hassan, raise up your hand in case they don't see you well. Yeah. So in every university we work with, we try to find an energy champion in that university. In Westminster, we're still trying to find one. But they know about us, they see what we do. We're just trying to find an energy champion that would identify with the work we do, so that we can actually create the consortium that we are trying to achieve. So expected outcomes, of course, we want to strengthen partnerships to ensure that and then we want to build pipelines for bankable projects. We want to have like research fellowships. That's why we're trying to get an energy access center. It's something that's been on the pipeline, getting an energy access center. Do we host it in East London? Do we host it in Westminster? We need an energy access center that would prioritize energy access as a mainstream conversation, and not just energy access from an aid perspective, but energy access from an agency and partnership perspective. Some people in the room have left. I was going to point some people that were talking about us, Africans, not really accusing Africans, actually the truth. They were saying that Africans are always looking forward to World Bank's hand over notes to get their renewables done. But that's not really true. It's just that they've done a lot of siloed efforts when it comes to, because Africans have actually really embraced renewables. Just that you get to this block, and then this house has renewable and they can afford light, and the next ones don't have. And then so if they don't have it as a collective, they cannot be a collective development for the community, if you understand what I mean. It's not always the case that it's always World Bank that gives us our clean energy that we get. So we're looking at investment opportunities, bankable project. Primarily bankable. When people talk about electrification, they think these projects are not bankable. They think it's too expensive and the return on investment is not great. So we need to actually flesh these things out and see how can people actually invest. And development doesn't just work that only the government will do it. You and I sit in the room, how can we contribute to a community development effort? So we're using the opportunity to call for partnerships, and we really want people to come on board. I am so glad that I have S&P Global. A round of applause for S&P Global. S&P Global is in the room today. It makes me really excited, and I'm like, okay. So we're able to get S&P in the room. I don't know how many people have heard about S&P. Oh, not everybody. We just raise our hands if you heard about S&P. They're big. They're big in the space. So it's only our energy people. That's only the people on the panel. The rest of us have not heard about S&P. So S&P is big in the energy space. They've been, because I'm a member of the African Energy Chambers, and during the African Energy Week, we partner strongly with S&P. S&P, they lead all they curate, not really curate, but they kind of lead almost all the panels. They're big on the research side of things. They give all the insights that we need to strive. And then, of course, when we have industries like this, Christina, our Energy Access Center will actually strive. We have finance, commercial bank in the room, First Bank, UK. We have practitioners, Genesis Energy. We're looking to have more sea capture, renewables in Africa. That knowledge and insight you give cannot be undervalued. You have to pronounce your name, Alexandra McGregor. That's good. I tried. I'm very good. So he's an associate director as S&P Global, and I'm so happy to have you with us here today, and for everybody that's contributed. Helen, thank you for coming. Everyone, thank you so much. I just want you to know that I appreciate your presence, but the essence of having pre-conferences was because we want to prepare strongly for December, and we are trying to tell you this is what we are up to. please, how can you help us with the right partnerships that we need to make December come out very successfully? And you've seen our 4 verticals. If you want to reach me after now for us to connect and see how we can actually, get this scope off the ground, we will be grateful. So, October, that's what's next. Please bring out your phone if you have a mobile phone, scan the QR code, and please register for October. I'm waiting. Your phones, please. 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 We have our time. I have about 5 minutes to get off the stage, so the building shuts down in less than 30 minutes. Your phones, please scan, register for October 29th. Please scan. We need you to register. And nobody's registering. You're not interested. This building is beautiful enough. And we're experiencing winter and summer. Please register. Yeah. Tell your friend to tell another friend. Please register to attend, and let's see if we can give you better value than what you got today. This is our first try, and please appreciate us even if we did not meet your expectation. We hope to do that next time. I'm sure everyone has scanned. Please scan for October. Thank you. Greg, you're not scanning.
I'm going to be away. I'm like, can I change my holiday to be here?
You're going to be away in October. Work has started. October is back from summer. Next thing is, before we go into this photo and networking session, we still have more QR codes for our December events. It's still going to be here. Might not be this building. October is in this same space, so you have familiarized yourself with this already. So October will be an easy walk in the park. But in December, we're having it at the main building there. And then please scan. What is more important and very important to me, while I know you reach out to us to scan for December, please look at this QR code here. This one, we need feedbacks on how we deliver today for process improvement. Helen, please bring your phone and give us the feedback, please.
No pressure.
Dr. Daniel, please, your phone. Yeah, thank you. Alex, we think you're doing that already. Okay. Titi, your phone, feedback.
I scanned it already.
Feedback. Just tell me, how did today go? What do you think we can do better? Feedback, please. That's how we can improve the process already. Before I hand the mic back over to Lady EJ, I would like to request that we have a group photo. And then if there's still some bottles of Prosecco that no one has touched, we still have about 15 minutes to do that before we go downstairs. And I want to thank you all for coming from the bottom of my heart. Joy, easy to connect with me on LinkedIn. That's the quickest way to connect with me. And if you're not on LinkedIn, I'm happy to just engage in whatever capacity, but LinkedIn is my go-to social media hub. What else? If you have any questions for me, I'll take it.
Do we have the GCell's Instagram page? GCell Instagram page. Do we have it?
No, we don't have it. But if you just type GCell on Instagram, it will pop up.
We'll help people join it right now. There's a lot of engagement there.
I don't have the GCell Instagram.
Or the LinkedIn. GCell LinkedIn.
GCell, there's a lot going on GCell LinkedIn. Yes. How many of you are following us on social media? You, awesome. What did you see? Tell me.
I saw that you have events coming up very soon, and I got to know because I followed Christine.
And
so
she posted one of the pages.
Yeah. And so I just followed
On LinkedIn. So you
yesterday.
see, do you watch our insights?
It was actually last night. I wanted to know about what I'm coming for today.
So we do a lot. So we have weekly insights on Global South MG. We do a lot, especially on Powering Africa. So if you can help us to follow us. It's easy. GCL Global Sustainable Energy and Leadership Network. It's very easy. We are very much on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. Name it, all of them. And we try. We're still trying to build our social media presence, but we've done quite well. we're looking forward to. Does anyone want to start? Does anyone have any questions to ask? Question? No question. I expect more questions anyway. So can we all come out for a full session, please? Thank you so much. Please, I want you to be a little bit. Yeah, we all tired and looking off. So how are we gonna get the photo done? Photo, please. Okay, so we need all our panelists to sit down. All our speakers, please sit down.
I don't have. Let me just.
Okay.
You also have to sit.
Okay, I'll sit here. Yeah, but
I think
all
one more.
one more.
Mary. So we just said Mary GC.
You want to sit? All our speakers, please sit. Everyone, just come in. Just come. Let's join the photo if you don't mind.
It's chilling here.
Yeah. There's one speaker. Please have your seat.
Am I forgetting something? Most importantly, I want to thank my team. They're watching online. It's not possible for me to do this without them. I want
No,
to
it's okay.
thank
Don't ask that.
my team. I want a round of applause. Thank you. Thank you.
You don't want to join the picture?